1. As a teenager, I worked for a company that made lawn care products, but sold them through large retailers like Home Depot, Walmart, Lowe's, etc. My job was to stand around in the lawn and garden section and do two things. Help customers find an appropriate product if we had one, get them to buy our version instead of the other guys. What this amounted to was waving coupons in people's faces to convince them to buy a Roundup. Easy peasy. However, my company saw fit to issue me a blue polo shirt and jeans as a uniform, and then place me in a Lowe's. Issue 1. For those of you unfamiliar with Lowe's, the uniform isn't blue, but the primary color of the storefront and logo is blue. Despite my best efforts to be forthcoming about my employer, people often became confused both by my apparent love for a certain company's products and total lack of knowledge of the rest of the store. Issue 2. I was well trained, and even knew enough about lawn care and pest control that I could help people even though I couldn't sell them anything. Issue 3. The lawn and garden section was adjacent to the paint desk. At the time, I was also working at a paint store, known for expertise that big box stores often didn't have, and was comfortable fielding complex questions about the topic. This will become relevant. Day after day, hour after hour, I would get that look. The look every retail employee knows. The look you only get from someone over 25 yards away. The unmistakable eye contact of someone with a question. I came to dread that look, but not because I didn't want to help them. I dreaded that look because 85% of the time I couldn't answer their question, and all I wanted to do was help them. I became so tired of trying to explain and apologize and track down actual Lowe's employees that I began to subconsciously take over their responsibilities. I learned about the products placed near my station and the general layout of the store. I began to answer questions outside of my field. The tiki torches are outside on your right. This ceiling fan kit is more expensive because it has a light and the other one doesn't. Oh, you're painting a nursery. Might want to buy this low VOC product instead of the standard stuff. I didn't realize how much of this I'd been doing until I had several strange things happen in one day. First, a lawn and garden employee deferred to me when a customer had a question. Somewhat understandable, I suppose, but still unexpected because I was like 17. Next, the store manager walked up on an interaction I was having with a customer ready to take over. He opened his mouth 3 times to interject, and then closed it again as I gave the correct answer. Afterward, we both kind of chuckled, and he said something along the lines of, "Thanks for the help." Finally, one of my regulars from the paint store, a general handyman and contractor sort of guy, came in and asked for directions. I gave them to him, and he went about his business. About 20 minutes later, he comes back with a question actually relevant to my job, and I get him taken care of, with my product and a coupon in his hand. But during the entire interaction, I can see that he's trying to place me. For context, these 2 locations are on opposite sides of town, about 35 minutes apart. He has no reason to expect to see me. He walks about 10 steps towards the registers and then comes back, very confused, having finally recognized me.
"Wait, don't you work at X Paint Store?"
I confirm, and we both laugh, and he asks,
"So you're working at Lowe's now too, I see."
It hits me about halfway through my explanation of, no, I don't work for Lowe's, but I do work in Lowe's, because blah blah blah, that for the entire day I have given nobody I interacted with any indication that I don't work for Lowe's. Nobody has seemed to notice, and I've been able to answer every question. For all intents and purposes, I did work for Lowe's. 2. This happened about 7 years ago. My first job out of college was at an electronics retailer as a salesperson. One day while I'm hanging out in the break area, we hear a loud boom from the basement area. All power cut out except for emergency lights. Myself and several other employees rushed downstairs to find smoke coming out of one of the rooms. From what we could see, the circuit breaker had blown. The manager on duty called the fire department. After a quick discussion between the store manager, property manager, and fire department, it was decided that the store would have to be closed for the day. Since there was no power, we couldn't sell anything, provide any tech support, etc. Most of the customers who were still in the store had heard the boom and seen the power go out. So when we told them we were closing due to safety concerns, they didn't give us any trouble. The manager had us do some quick closing duties, throwing out trash, putting back chairs, restocking the shelves, and then let most of the sales staff go home for the day. The only 3 he didn't have clock out were myself and my co-workers, Andy and Sam, not their real names. For some reason, my manager wanted the 3 of us to sit outside the store's door and explain to any customers trying to come in that we were closed for the day. Why he didn't just tape a note to the door, I don't know. But I needed the money, so didn't complain. So Andy, Sam and I are seated on stools in front of the entrance. The front of the store is all glass, so anyone walking by can see the sales floor and all the various computers and other electronics on display. For the next several hours we were sat outside and had to explain to numerous upset customers why we were closed. Our manager tried to call as many folks as he could that had appointments later in the day, so they wouldn't make the drive down. It didn't matter how we framed it though. Explosion, fire department shut us down, closed the store due to safety concerns, etc. Many people took out their frustrations on us. One guy even threatened to report us to the Better Business Bureau for some reason. But my favorite interaction was between my coworker Andy and this angry lady. "I need someone to look at my phone." "I'm sorry. Earlier today the circuit breaker exploded, and currently the power is out. We're closed for the rest of the day due to safety concerns. If you still want to try and be seen today, there's another store in..." "This is fucking ridiculous. I drove all the way down here." It went on like this for a bit. Angry lady would express her frustration at being turned away, how she didn't care about whatever circuit breaker, while Andy would try his best to talk her down and offer possible solutions. He apologized for the inconvenience, and tried again to refer her to another store located about 20 minutes away, but she wouldn't listen. She finally glared at us and accused us of lying about the power outage. "You kids are such fucking liars too. Your computers are still on. I can see them through the window." She turned away in a huff and began walking away. At this, Andy chuckled, leaned forward in his chair and shouted after her, "Those are laptops! They're running on battery power!" 3. I work at a white-collar job and have a small group of employees who report to me. One of my direct reports, I'll call her NK, and I had a meeting with a prospective client at their office. Since our conference room smells like feet for some reason, and we were coming back from the meeting when we decided to stop in the coffee shop across the street from the office to compare notes. The place was crowded, so we found a 2-person high top in a corner, ordered 2 cups of coffee, and pulled out our laptops. After a while we were done with our coffee and NK had to use the restroom, so she offered to bring up our mugs and get us another cup. I said that was fine, but to get them to go since I didn't think we'd be there too much longer. I should probably mention that I'm dressed in a navy blue suit with a tie, and NK is wearing black pants, a dark grey top, and heels. She leaves with mugs in hand, and I start dealing with emails that have come in. The cafe is busy, and the 2 baristas behind the counter are busy taking orders and getting people's drinks. I zoned out for a bit while answering emails, but was suddenly brought back to reality when I noticed someone is standing right next to me. When I look up, I see a woman you would describe as looking like a Karen. Late 40s, that haircut, horrible taste in clothes, and NK standing behind her looking exasperated. Then the following conversation took place. "Here he is."
"You're her manager?"
I'm sorry?
"Are you her boss?"
Sure. We're usually referred to as team lead.
"Whatever. I want her written up. We needed our table wiped down and she ignored me 3 times. I've never had an experience where a server has looked right at me and then just completely ignored me. Do you have any pride in your customer service?"
I look behind her to NK, who is rolling her eyes as Karen speaks. When I look back to the table Karen gestured to, I see an older gentleman who is quietly sipping his coffee across from a giant handbag. At this point, things start to click for me. NK walked up to the counter and dropped off the mugs, then went to the restroom, after which she went back to the counter to order our second cups. Karen must have thought she worked there since she was wearing darker colors, which is the standard uniform for a certain chain of coffee shops. However, this wasn't that coffee shop, and NK's clothes were obviously nice go-to-meet-an-important client type of clothes. And I don't know many baristas who wear heels on the job. Well, we do value customer service, but cleaning tables isn't exactly her job, as I gesture towards the table with laptops and reports laid on it. If you want someone to help you, you can ask someone behind the counter.
She doesn't work here?
No, we work at Company X across the street.
Well, it's still rude to ignore people.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, but we were in the middle of something. If you'd like to discuss it further, you can email me. I hand her my business card with an impressive but ultimately useless director title on it. Karen hesitates a bit longer as I make eye contact with her, before turning away in a huff and heading back to what I'm assuming was her husband. Poor bastard. NK sets the coffees down and apologizes, which was unnecessary, but said that the woman grabbed her by the arm, almost spilling the coffee, and simply refused to believe that she doesn't work here. So when she asked to see her manager, NK thought, fine, let's go. We were there for a few more minutes before we decided to pack up. As we were leaving, I looked over to Karen's table to see her giving us a death stare. I waved. She quickly looked away. Never did get an email about it. Anyway, that's my tale. I hope you enjoyed it as much as NK enjoyed hearing me tell it to the office. And as they say on the IT crowd, people, what a bunch of bastards. 4. This happened about 2 years ago to me when I worked at a grocery store in Michigan. I can't remember everything exactly, but from what I remember, I believe it was during the summer. A bit of background. This was my first job and I started out as a service clerk, a glorified title for a bagger, and at this point I believe I had been trained as a cashier, and this day I think I was on a lane with about 5 other cashiers and 3 or 4 other service clerks. Also important is to know that returns could only be done at the service desk by either a manager or a cashier who had been trained to do so. I will of course be changing people's names throughout, but let's get on with the cast. Myself, as narrator, RG, returns guy, Han, cashier, who had just been trained on the service desk and was able to do returns, John, front-end manager, who was basically the manager above all other front-end managers, SL, shoplifting lady, description to come, Anne, one of the managers in charge of our wine and liquor department, she was in that day doing orders, Mac, service clerk who plays a small role. Like I said, there were many more people up front that day, but they do not play a large enough role to be named, and I also don't exactly remember what they did during the whole event. Anyways, on with the story. So it must have been around 11 a.m. that RG came up to the service desk with a bunch of what was described to me as hair care products. Now, even though we were a grocery store, we did have an aisle with stuff along those lines. Shampoo, conditioner, body wash, and the like. This was not a large selection, though, and the different brands were somewhat limited. Today Han was on the service desk, having been recently trained for that job. So when RG came in with a large box containing that many items asking for a refund, he, being unsure of what to do, since some of the items didn't look like they came from us, called John to the service desk for help. John scanned the items to see if they were in the system, and while a few did come up, others did not. At that point, John told the guy he was sorry, but he couldn't take the product back without a receipt. The guy didn't put up any fight and left with his stuff. After that, I figured it would go back to being a normal and boring day with the average customer. I was very wrong about that, though. Flash forward an hour or so, and I see John up front on the phone walking back and forth. At that point, Han walks up and tells me to keep an eye out for one lady, SL, and tells me what happened so far. Turns out that SL had come in with a big shopping cart and gone straight to the liquor section, which if you walked into the store and turned left and walked past the cashiers, would be along the wall and extended a small ways out with a nice selection of wine and other alcoholic beverages. Along the wall was mostly things like Captain Morgan, Jack Daniels, Crown Royal, and a whole variety of others. This woman then started to basically clear the shelves of Captain Morgan, Jack Daniels, and Crown Royal, all the expensive stuff. At this point I should mention, we did put those black caps on them that only the cashiers had the tool to remove. They may be meant to sound an alarm, but at our store they didn't do that. It was just an easy way to keep them from reselling, and taking it off incorrectly would essentially ruin the bottle. At this point, I will do my best to describe SL. Beyond simply not looking like she could afford all that liquor, I didn't look at her for that long, but from what I remember, she did look like she did drugs and generally did not have a lot of money. Now, I normally don't judge people and feel bad whenever I do, but in this case, that simple description fit her perfectly. After clearing the shelves, Anne went up and asked if she needed any help, and was told no, she was simply shopping for a party. And with that, went on her way throughout the store to finish her shopping. Sensing something was not right though, Anne went and told John about it, hoping something could be done. Now, from what I can tell, somewhere, whether it be state law or company policy, unless the items actually leave the store, it is not stolen even if it is clear what the intent was. Given this fact, John didn't think calling the police would do anything but went ahead anyways, hence why he was on the phone. Surprisingly, they did send a couple of cars by the store before she even left. My guess is due to the large value of what was being taken and the likelihood that it was to be resold elsewhere. At the point when I was alerted by Han to keep an eye out, she was headed towards our bakery section. It was at this point, though, I also found out how bad a crook she really was. Remember how I said we put those black caps on the bottles, which only cashiers are able to remove? Well, turns out she went down a few of the aisles and removed them herself. And after seeing her do this in plain sight, customers went to tell Anne. At which point they were told we knew and were trying to get her to leave with the product. This means that not only was basically the whole store aware of what she was doing, but random customers were able to figure it out and were alerting staff. I found out the reason she was headed towards the bakery was because in the back there, we have both the loading docks and another door for our vendors to come through that is right by the receiving office. This door, however, is always locked and has an alarm on it, meaning if you try to open it, you'll be found out rather quickly. We also have a bunch of empty banana boxes stacked near that door for whatever reason. There are also bathrooms back there, but those are only for employees. It turns out she was trying to get out of that vendor door with her stuff, and was caught by an employee. She asked if there was a bathroom back there, was told no, and left. But not before grabbing some banana boxes to put on top of her stuff. It was at this point that pretty much all the cashiers knew what was going on, and were keeping an eye on this lady. She then came back up front and simply started to walk out the front door, past John on the phone with the cops. At this point, as she was walking out, John sent Mac into the lobby to let him know when she actually stepped out of the building. As soon as she did, Mac told John, who likely told the cops, and then things started. As soon as she was out of the building, the red and blue lights came on, and 2 cop cars pulled up to block her from fleeing. At that point, she pushed the cart away from herself and in the process actually hit another shopper's car, which the cops explained to them later. She was then arrested and, from what I understand, faked being faint or having a seizure in an effort to get out of going to jail, which as far as I know didn't work. After realizing how things were going though, she seemingly broke down. Turns out what she said was that her boyfriend made or makes her steal, meaning she had likely done this before at other stores. At that point I believe either the cops at our store or some others had been in the area keeping an eye out for anything suspicious, pulled over a guy who had been driving around the block multiple times. Either way, they confirmed who he was with the woman and he was arrested. The best part about this being that he was RG from earlier. If you thought things couldn't get better though, you'd be wrong. She was also wearing an ankle monitor this whole time, meaning she was on probation, and after the cops searched her car, they found a crack pipe and drugs in there. She did catch one break though, if you can call it that. After all items were rung up, which included a bag of kitty litter, I believe it came to just under $1,000, which would have been grand larceny. Ironically though, the only reason she didn't get that is because she opened one of the bottles to take a swig and left that in one of the aisles, meaning that it couldn't be included. I've never heard anything else about it, but would be curious to see what ended up happening to the two of them. 5. About 3 years ago, 2016, I went to a Blink concert at the Irvine Meadows Amphitheater, which closed at the high end of 2016. Me and my friend had a rockin' time. It was a really great concert. The concert was about how long concerts are, about 2 to 4 hours long, and nothing bad really happens. They throw sex dolls into the crowd, people were drunk, high, and having a great time. Come to the end of the show, me and my friend wade through a crowd of fans all trying to get out. We decide to stop at a shop, and he buys a few shirts and jackets. He probably spent almost as much as I paid for a ticket, about $150, and I bought a concert tee with the openers and Blink on them. Honestly, the shirts weren't too impressive, I just wanted one for the memory. We turn around and see that there are lines for everything, especially to get out. So we decide to hit the restrooms. I go to the women's, which, surprising, didn't have a long line, and he hangs onto the shirts and either smokes or starts socializing with people who smoke, probably both, because he was burnt out when I got back. He passes me the clothes and heads back to the men's latrine. I'm standing there off to the side with these clothes in my arms, and people are walking past, tired as hell, or just pumped up and ready to go home. My friend seems to be taking a long-ass time in the bathroom, as about 7 minutes have passed. And that's cool. I start to think about joining some people who were off in the background when a lady comes up to me and says, "I want a shirt." I said, "What?" She looks at me and repeats what she said. I look at her and say, "These are mine, these aren't for sale." She takes her finger and pokes it into my chest and squints, to which I realize she's crossfaded. She holds her finger there and says, "I know what you do. You buy all the shirts so you can sell them. I want the shirt because I need the shirt. They don't have any more over there, so give me a shirt. You can't keep it for yourself, you have to sell it. Your mom said so." Now, I'm assuming she thought I was a little kid who snuck into the venue grounds on behalf of his parents, telling them to buy as many shirts as he could and sell them for some bucks. People do that, but at that moment that wasn't clicking, and I was starting to get tired. "Dude, these are my friends, he's in the bathroom right now. If you want one, you can ask him." She just looks at me and says, "I don't know, but I have $40 and I want a shirt. Does your friend have more shirts?" At this point, I could have just walked away, but there were people everywhere. I didn't want to move and have my friend come out of the bathroom and we lose each other. My phone was dead. At that point, it had been about 15 minutes, and considered that my friend had either fallen in or was taking a big deuce. Either way, it was annoying and I wanted to leave. "My kid wants a shirt too, but he won't be as lucky as you if I don't get a shirt." Not really my problem. You didn't get to the kiosk in time because you were killing your brain cells. You have a kid and you crossfade? Very responsible parenting. You're a great mom already. Don't worry about the shirt, your kid is probably at home alone waiting for his mom to come home. Oh wait, she slept in Arando's car last night. Doesn't look like she's coming home till tomorrow. Go away. I wasn't really proud of myself for saying it, but I liked saying it. My friend finally came back, only about 20 minutes too late, and he told her to back off. She followed us halfway through the parking lot, broke her thin-ass heel, fell, and started crying. We got in our car and waited another 3/4 of an hour to get out of the parking lot. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Adventures in Fast Food and Retail, number 48. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. And now, I know I haven't done a subscriber video for a while. I haven't completely stopped doing them, but what I have been doing lately is kind of using subscriber stories a bit more in the regular videos. I'll probably do another subscriber-only video at some point in the future, but just in case you were wondering where they went, they haven't stopped completely. I'm just trying something a little different. There weren't any in this particular video, but there have been over the past couple of weeks. I also might be looking to try something a little bit newer at some point in the next couple of weeks, so not sure what yet. I've got some ideas saved. I'll see what I can come up with. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.